From the city of San Francisco, giving us a welcoming address, Miguel Gamino. He is the CIO of the city of San Francisco. Please welcome Miguel.
Thank you. Welcome to the Bay Area for the visitors in the room. I want to talk about partnerships and the roles in this world of IoT. And probably the most important role that sometimes gets lost in the conversation are the people that we're serving. And so, having this role as a civic technologist in San Francisco, we're constantly reminding ourselves to keep the target audience, the customer, front and center. And so this is our focus. All things IoT, all things technology, all things connectivity, they all need to boil down to serving people better, making government more accessible, transparent, smarter, responsive, all of those sorts of things. And so we talk about the diverse communities that we serve in San Francisco, and frankly exist all over the world. But there are, people from diverse economic backgrounds and diverse situations, life situations, that all stand to benefit from a smarter, more responsive city. And I think IoT and technology in general is kind of the gateway to that. I tell my mayor and I tell our constituents that technology isn't part of our business or an enabler to our business anymore. It is our business. It's a direct deliverable, a direct service that customers really care about. So we're talking about trying to shift from the left to the right. There's been a few phrases coined that I like and I subscribe to, which is that the government has always been a form for that environment in a world that has evolved to an app for that environment. And so customers' expectations have shifted. And so we're thinking a lot about how to make sure we're keeping up with that story. And IoT and connectivity and technology in general are the keys to that. They're the enabler to getting people out of standing in line and getting them online and delivering the service to them when and where they need it. So a little bit about our role. The first of the partnerships is the people, the customer, and they're delivering their expectations to us loud and clear. And the second of the roles is us, is the government. And so a little bit about us. We're a $9 billion organization with a little over 30,000 employees, 850,000 or so residents that balloons to about 1.5 million daytime kind of workforce and visitors in San Francisco. Citywide, we invest somewhere around $500 million in technology, and we've got almost 1,000 IT employees citywide. So it's clear that we're serious about this. We're investing heavily in making this move forward and assuming our role and responsibility to deliver this and advocate for the customer. So some things we've done to kind of lead that way. We were one of the first cities to launch a 311 app that listens directly to social channels. So taking technology, kind of the early era of it, if you will, and opening the door to people to connect with us where they were connecting with each other. Focused really heavily on data. So it's pretty widely known, at least in our civic tech circles, that kind of the concept of open data is really, really important. But I think what's interesting about this is it's shifted. Originally, the conversation was about making our data available to the public, to the private sector, that was going to commercialize it and build cool apps and deliver new services, and that has certainly happened. But what we've also learned is it broke down barriers even within our organization. We're a big, complex organization with plenty of silos and diverse missions and all kinds of competing priorities. But that data has enabled a conversation even within our organization that is already making us much more effective. So we've shifted that focus pretty aggressively to consume our own data for better decision making as a government. And we are a city of firsts. We're proud to lead the way and lead this conversation, fully kind of acknowledging our role in this partnership beyond just San Francisco, but frankly globally. Right? We're talking about this, and I'm organizing my colleagues from all over the world, and we're all faced with the same problem, regardless of the hemisphere, the language, the country, the continent. We're all looking for better connectivity. We're all talking about things like IoT, and we're all talking about things like data and the value it drives to the organization and the community. So we were proud to be one of the first cities to actually establish that open data office. We were the first to create the role of a civic innovation officer, which created a focus on using technology to transform the organization. And then getting into that partnership conversation, I'll get a little deeper in a moment, but we created programs like our Entrepreneur in Residence program that invited the third of the three-legged partnership to the table, the private sector, into our organization, right? Full kimono. This is what we're dealing with. This is what we're faced with. These are the customers we're trying to serve. These are the assets and the things we do have at hand, but we need help solving those problems differently, thinking about those solutions critically and differently. And the private sector has proven to be a really valuable partner in that effort. And we were leading a lot of the conversations globally for the techies in the room that are particularly interested in things like net neutrality and connectivity, pervasive connectivity. We've been successful in leading that conversation, baking it into our city culture as a core component of what is going to make San Francisco continue to be the innovation and technology capital of the world. And so we've been leading that conversation nationally and globally. And this is what's happened. Handful of logos you probably recognize, all headquartered in San Francisco. And I come to these conferences and people they'll catch me in the hallway and they'll ask me for the blue pill. The secret sauce, the magic that it takes to have Uber start their business in your community. And I tell them it's just not that easy. It's a long, deep culture in San Francisco about inviting disruption and creative thinking, and a government that is not afraid of doing things first and inspiring and inviting that conversation even into the government, acknowledging our role in the world and continuing to feed it. And so my question is, if this has happened now, what will happen next? And so we're here to talk about the Internet of Things. And one of my favorite moments in public speaking was I was at an Internet of Things conference in Dubai, room about this size, a crowd about this size, and I got to break something to you. Without the internet, we're all just here talking about some things. And so a lot of the applications that are being thought of and the use cases that are being approached in this context, in this lens of Internet of Things, everybody in this room, every single person in this room is taking connectivity for granted. Because your solutions don't work if they're not connected by definition. And so I'm trying to make sure that from a city government, from the public rights of way, from an infrastructure responsibility component of that partnership, that we're not losing sight of that. We're not losing sight of the fact that that connectivity infrastructure is key to all the great things that you all are trying to build. And being able to look deeper into a forward horizon about what kind of connectivity is going to be required. Sure, your apps probably work right now well over LTE, although that's expensive and limited. There are dedicated IoT networks that are being built in San Francisco. We partnered with Sigfox so far and talking to others. And so we already have a dedicated IoT network that is citywide in San Francisco, inviting people to build use cases on it. But what happens when you've got really high capacity or the ability to deal with high densities in a different way? What kind of use cases, what kind of solutions will get built? Things that I can't even imagine. And so we're really focused heavily on what we believe to be a core part of our role in this conversation, which is connectivity. So some of the early things, I talk about connectivity, and we've got to have enough of it that is here and now that can inspire people to support it. Because not everybody in my community of daytime 1.5 million people understand the types of things that this room is talking about, IoT applications in the future. Some of them want to know, what am I getting for my tax dollar investment today? And so we're taking I think I'm really proud of the fact we're taking a pragmatic yet strategic visionary approach to connectivity. So we're looking at things in two horizons. One is, what can these investments deliver to our community today that help with the issues that they're faced with today, like affordability of housing or lack thereof, homelessness, public safety concerns. It's no secret to anybody, if you've read any local newspaper, we have our fair share of those in San Francisco right now. And I believe that connectivity generally can assist with all of those things if it's understood better. So we're building things like public Wi-Fi because that's something that serves the people today, and those are our investors. But we're building it in a way that is my responsibility to see to that deeper horizon, the type of things that you guys are here for a couple of days to talk about. So we're very conscious and cognizant of that opportunity. So we built public Wi-Fi. I love this slide just because of the top right. I love this slide when there's Twitter folks in the room. Because someone tweeted that they were using SF Wi-Fi from the Twitter headquarters because there wasn't free Wi-Fi at the Twitter building. I tweeted that to Jack, by the way. So the point is that this is useful. People need this, people want it for all kinds of use cases, whether it's tweeting, applying for jobs. In a digital service world, when we modernize our government services, they can use this public access to apply for subsidies and those programs that we desperately want to deliver to people, but those very same people often have the biggest challenge with consuming it. So I got that question about, does this really matter? Just in the month of January, just as a bright spot, we had over 9 million sessions just on Market Street and 33 parks alone. So if anybody is still debating whether people in this world want public Wi-Fi, and I know I'm preaching to the converted, I get it, but there are people out there that still ask that question, believe it or not. This is the slide I send them. In a fairly limited percentage of my geography, I hosted 9 million sessions in 1 month and transmitted almost 30 terabytes of data. So these are not passive connections. So what does all this mean? What's the next movement? And this is where I start to get into the third leg of the three-legged partnership here, which is the private sector, a lot of you in this room. So San Francisco wants to become a smarter city. We want to help enable, frankly, other cities become smarter. So I'm working with my colleagues to try to build that framework, and connectivity and IoT and data are core elements of that framework. We believe that there's a lot to be gained as a community from it, from an economic standpoint. And it is key to us delivering service to those underserved communities. I tell people the apps that we're building and the connectivity services that we're delivering and digitizing our city processes is not just for the iPhone crowd. It's not just for the Twitter folks tweeting from outside their headquarters. Those people, the first part of this partnership, the people that need the service that our taxpayers are investing in, the people that need that service the most have the least flexibility to get it. Those are the people, that's the single mom like my own mom, who is maybe working an hourly job, has a kid in school, has a kid not in school. And in order for her to take advantage of those services that the government is spending tons of money organizing and attempting to deliver, she's got to take a day off of work unpaid, probably has to take public transit, has to arrange for daycare, has to handle the school situation. She's coming down to City Hall because it's the big building in the middle of the city with the dome. So logic would tell you that's where you go get city services. She shows up, doesn't know where to go, stands in line. Heaven forbid she stands in the wrong line, because then she's got to repeat all of that tomorrow. And so digitizing service, having better data, helping the decision-making process be improved at city government, it's not just about people like me who have cell phones, have iPhones, and want to consume services conveniently. This is about delivering services to people who need them, who might not otherwise be able to. And so we don't have the solution. We have the problem set, we have the customer, and we have a hell of a lot of infrastructure. We don't pretend to have the solutions, nor even the ecosystem to build all those solutions. And so we actively invite the private sector into our fold to help us solution that. Our partnership with Sigfox, potential partnerships with others. We evolved our Entrepreneur in Residence program into a Startup in Residence program. We have 13 startups. We've dedicated office space to them. Maybe counterintuitive, but we dedicated office space to them. They're coming into our shop. We're not going into theirs. They're coming into ours and being inspired by our problem sets, by our desires to innovate. And we're being inspired by their creative thinking and their approaches to these problems. And that's also something that's scaling across other cities. So even in our first launch, Oakland and some other cities are taking advantage of this program. It's being replicated in Amsterdam. So it's something we also want to share around the world. So the idea is that we'll be able to, in real time, not only accomplish what hackathons have historically accomplished, which is solutioning things differently, but we're going to by embedding that in the government, by having my staff work with those startups, I'm creating a different kind of era of critical thinking, even internal to the organization. The idea there being to sustain it, to replicate it, to teach ourselves how to fish, not just bring fish. So we've really embraced this. We're already getting a lot of positive feedback and results, and looking forward to a lot of those solutions coming forward. And so the Internet of Things has become a bright spot in that whole conversation. How do we take this wave of technology, of critical thinking, of the ability to collect data to make smarter decisions and affect different outcomes? How do we combine that with a bright focus on our customer, our role in the public sector with resources and infrastructure and need, the private sector being partnered and inside of our organization, and how do we put a bow on that, focused on investing in Internet of Things critical thinking? So we engaged, we did have a hackathon when we launched our dedicated network. And that came after a lot of thinking around the problems that we were faced with. And we had 3 winners. And those 3 winners are being pressed forward to implement those solutions in real time in the city of San Francisco. So what's next? We want to take the winners from that hackathon, those use cases that have been developed, care and feed for them, invite others into the organization, and try to see deeper than even those use cases kind of present on surface. So we're investing very heavily in the network, investing very heavily in the partnerships, and continuing to do things like this to encourage you all to think about the use cases, the customer that I'm representing. Commercialization, all that sort of thing is great and it's important. But I would ask, it's kind of my invitation to the people in this room thinking about the Internet of Things as an industry, as an opportunity, to think about how to apply that to civic good. Think about how to partner with either San Francisco or your local community to develop playbooks and tool sets and use cases and solutions that not only make good business, but make good civic outcomes, make a difference. I come from the private sector. I had a couple startups, and I got talked into this role. And I took it on as a project, and I thought it would be very temporary. But I'll have to tell you, there's something really deeply meaningful about serving those customers that I talked about first. So as you spend the rest of the 2 days talking about the Internet of Things, talking about these really cool applications, I hope I've planted a seed that will have you at least thinking a little bit about how to do some civic good with all of that technology and brain power that's been assembled here today. So I want to welcome you to the Bay Area. I hope you find time to come up to our little city north of here in San Francisco. Enjoy the sights, enjoy the weather, enjoy the conference, and I look forward to seeing more and more develop as this kind of wave of this era of technology evolves going forward. So thank you very much for having me, and welcome to the Bay.
Excellent job, Miguel. Great. You can take it inside there. So it's almost what you'd expect, right? San Francisco, free Wi-Fi, Internet of Things, smart cities. It makes us proud. I think it also puts San Jose kind of a bit back on their heels.